Welcome to the Diary of a Working Woman podcast. I'm Jonette, your host. On this podcast, I'll be speaking to women from all walks of life of different ages. And the thing that they'll have in common is that they will work in some way or another. Their stories will be motivating, inspiring, empowering. I just know you're going to enjoy it. Please follow me on Diary of a Working Woman to receive all the latest episodes. Tune in. Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of Diary of a Working Woman. Today I'm absolutely ecstatic to be speaking with an ex-colleague of mine and very dear friend who has done something extraordinary, I think, with her life. Lauren Allen is an ex-senior leader in education. She decided that she wanted to have a complete change in career direction. So in March 2023, she decided to learn how to trade. So it's a massive change from being an educationalist to learning how to trade full time. In June 2023, Lauren decided to go on a spa retreat in Bali. During that time, something amazing happened to her because she decided that she was going to quit everything that she knows about life and move to Bali. And just a few months later, she made that tough decision and moved to Bali. So she's joining me here today from Bali, where she now lives. So I am dying to hear more about her journey and what inspired her and how it's all panned out. So I'm going to stop speaking and introduce you all to the lovely, gorgeous Lauren Allen. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Jeanette.
So nice to see and hear your voice.
It's so lovely to see you. I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I am brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I have listened to your other guests and they're all so inspiring. So I feel like I'm in a really good group of passionate and dedicated working women being part of your podcast series. So thank you so much for inviting me on.
I'm honoured. I'm glad you're here. I just wish I was there with you in Bali instead, right?
Well, yeah, you should come one day.
I know, I have to. Grey skies as always, miserable, drizzling rain. And you're in the beautiful, I can see all the tropical plants in the background. I'm so jealous. So jealous.
Yeah, but it could start raining at any point, Jeanette. So it could turn grey and there could be a thunderstorm. That's the tropical storms that we get here, but they're over quickly and dry up quickly. So
exactly. And you've got that beautiful glow. So, you know, oh my goodness, let's launch. So what inspired you to move to Bali? That's what I really want to know. Why? Why Bali and why then?
Okay, so like you said in your introduction, I had been working in education for a long time. It had been 10 years. Yeah. And I was asked by a friend if I would join her on a trip to Bali. And I hadn't even thought about going to Bali before. And I said that I really want it to be a purposeful trip. So if we're going to go, to look for a retreat that would be really beneficial to us and our lives. So we had a look online and there are so many retreats that are available, but I narrowed it down to one that sounded perfect for what both me and my friend needed. So we headed out to Bali. We were here for 10 days, 10 nights, and it was a life-changing experience. So there was yoga and meditation and breath work, and these are things that I hadn't practiced before in my life, and I didn't know how beneficial they would be for me in terms of my body, because I do have fibromyalgia. So just being in that climate and some of the meditation and especially the breath work helped release a lot of physical tension that I was holding on to and freed up so much space in my mind as well. And I thought, if I've had this experience after just 10 nights. The retreat itself was actually, I think, 6 nights. What could I do if I was to come back and do a year? So I decided, I'd already left my job at that point and I'd started studying trading full time, and it was going slowly, and it does go very slowly. I'd actually started looking at trading, I think 2017, 18, but it'd been on and off. Obviously I was working full time, and Jeanette, you know how hard it is to, as a teacher, to do anything outside of it, because you've got planning and marking. So I wasn't spending as much time as I wanted to on trading. So I thought, okay, I'm going to trade full time. And when I got back from the retreat, I just knew that if I really wanted to give myself the best opportunity to have a future that I designed myself in terms of trading full time and being healthy as well, managing my fibromyalgia symptoms, then I really believed and still do believe that Bali was the best place for me. So within 3 months, I packed up what I could and I was out here on that journey.
My goodness, I'm going to pause there. Just pause because I know an awful lot would have happened between the time that they made the decision to move and those 3 months of moving. So I want to slow us down a little bit. But first of all,
Okay.
I guess I'm really curious about fibromyalgia. I don't really know what that condition is. Are you willing just to share a little bit of what that is and how that affects you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, okay, so you're not alone, Jeanette. Not a lot of people do know what fibromyalgia is, and even in the medical industry, it's not fully understood. There is no diagnosis. You can't take a blood test and be diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It takes, for a lot of people, a very long time to get the diagnosis. It did for me. I started experiencing pains in my joints. That was the first symptom that I had, and I actually had the pain and I thought it was just my body was sort of every now and again I'd have painful knees and shoulders. But it actually became something I couldn't ignore after a couple of years because I was a young mum and it was impacting my life more and more. And so I went to my GP. And that really got the ball rolling. I had some blood tests, although they weren't thinking fibromyalgia at the time, but they did some blood tests. I did some physiotherapy. And then there was an assessment of where I get the pain and what the pain is like. And that's how I was then able to be diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So before I moved out to Bali, it wasn't just the pain, it was also fatigue and feeling really down. The depression would come on as a symptom of the pain. So obviously I'm in pain, I can't do everything that I want to do, and I'm feeling really tired. I had started taking tramadol, which was prescribed to me straight away. I couldn't drive on it. I couldn't concentrate. I was at uni at the time. And so I had to come off the medication, and I realized I really need to kind of find a way to overcome this kind of myself, because taking painkillers for the rest of my life just wasn't an option. And my nan was really good at looking at sort of newspaper and magazine articles, things that I should and shouldn't eat. I found that exercise would help, and also that the cold weather triggered my fibromyalgia. So I am always warm as I can be. So in the UK, I had an electric blanket on the mattress of my bed and an actual electric blanket I would wrap around me, and I'd just have to be warm all the time. And sometimes, if I was cold, I would just get pains in my shoulders or my knee, and it would then spiral from there. After a few years, I was able to sort of catch myself and see where these symptoms were going, and it didn't affect me as much. It was more kind of like mind over matter. This is how I have to live, and I just got on with it. But coming out to Bali, I actually met someone, a friend of mine, and she sort of heard me talk about fibromyalgia. She hadn't heard someone sort of explaining all the symptoms, but in her work she does holistic remedies. So she had a look online, put my symptoms into a computer system I think that she has, and she's able to sort of say these are the symptoms and what would be a good remedy for it. So she had her son coming over to see her in Bali, and she had ordered a remedy to her son, and her son then brought it over from the States, and I started taking that. So whenever I feel a symptom, I just have 2 sugar pills under my tongue, let them dissolve. And from the first time I took that remedy until now, so that was probably maybe about a year, just under a year ago, I have not had what I used to call a flare up, which would be, maybe days or weeks of intense pain and fatigue. As soon as I feel the symptom, take the pills, and that's it. It never comes on again. So I'm super, super happy to have found that. But also doing yin yoga out here as well, and having massages to release the fascia on the muscles, which is new research that's come out about fibromyalgia, and I read about it, and I found somewhere in Bali where they do a special type of massage, so I incorporated that as well. And yeah, I've been almost pain-free the whole time I've been here, other than one flare-up.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because you wanted to take charge of your body, which obviously affects your mind, and it's, you know, all linked, your mind, your body, how you feel, and you were able to find a remedy, you know, not just something, a sticking plaster, go to the doctor, you get pills, but something, a life-changing habit that will alleviate the pain, and that's remarkable. But how did your family first react when you first mooted the idea of moving to Bali? Because I can imagine that you probably would have come across a little bit of opposition.
I did, yeah, but it was out of love, so
Yes.
I'm not mad about it. So most of my family know what I'm like, and I will sort of make a decision about something and it seems sort of out there, and they're used to me doing that. So when I said I'm moving to Bali, I think they understood, because they understood my journey in terms of working and the sort of issues, disappointments, maybe ceilings that I came across when it came to working and how that was actually impacting my lifestyle. So most of them were really supportive. I think maybe worried a little bit about me making such a big decision. My brother, who I'm super close with, and probably found it the most difficult because, you know, we were living together at the time and saw my life going a certain way, which is the way that I always saw it going as well. And so for me to just change that completely, and for him, it was a worry. He wants me to be safe and secure and have stability. And as long as I'm in the UK, no matter what I do, he's there to provide that for me, even if I can't get it myself. So I think that was
Yes.
the biggest worry.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, it
Right.
came from love, so it was great. But by the time I left, I had a going away party and everyone saw me off, and it was amazing, and everyone's been really supportive since.
And that's really good to hear. I want to give them a couple of things. You mentioned at the time, as well as your physical symptoms, I think you mentioned disappointments in ceilings, because obviously it's this diary of the working woman. So could you just say a bit briefly, what were the disappointments? Was that in personal relationships, in work, in both? So disappointments and ceilings as a, you know, a woman of colour, maybe in the work environment, and maybe a bit of disillusionment, maybe not going too much into it, but maybe just giving us another perspective as to what could have led to this life-changing move to Bali. There are now, I believe, approximately 400,000 expats from British expats living in Bali. So, what were the disappointments, perhaps, and the ceilings that contributed to your decision to move to Bali?
Yeah, well, as you know, I was a senior leader in education, and I I kind of think that the higher that I got in education, the more I saw that sort of going to uni and getting my teacher's qualification, I had no idea that these things would happen. And it's not terrible things necessarily, but I think I've just got a really sensitive soul. And I guess maybe my moral compass wouldn't allow me to engage in certain conversations, and maybe the way teachers were treated, and it wasn't, as I said, I don't want to sort of bad talk the education
Right,
system or
absolutely.
any schools
Yes.
that I worked with at all, but it was maybe more ruthless than I expected it to be, because schools are businesses now and there is that expectation, and I understand that. I had some really good experiences, but then also I felt just before coming out to Bali that I worked so hard to
Yeah.
meet multiple goals, in my last job, with an expectation based on conversations that had been had, that after a certain amount of time, certain things would happen and I could progress. And it didn't happen that way. And I thought, I put in the work and I achieved what needed to be done. I won an award. I felt like I did all that I could and more, because that's
Absolutely. Yes.
just the person that I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the bargain wasn't held up. And for me, it was, I just made a decision. I no longer want my life and the lifestyle that I lead to be dictated rather by somebody else making a decision, either yes or no, especially when the decision can be yes and it's just no.
Can I give you a
So
clap? Can I applaud you on that? Because so many
thank
of
you.
us, and I'm going to include myself in this, stay in a job and we work. morning, evenings, night times, through the night sometimes, weekends, during holiday time. And yet the work that we do may be unrecognised by those above. Maybe we may feel a bit undervalued, overlooked for promotions. As you said, promise things that don't materialise. And there needs to come a point where you think, actually, I'm better than this. I'm worth more than this. And if I just take control of my life, of my situation, then maybe I'll get a different result. So I need to applaud you, Lauren, for being brave and bold enough to say enough's enough and I'm now in charge of my own destiny.
Yeah, thank you. So I think for me, it was, I asked myself, if I worked as hard for myself as I do for other people, how far would I go? And I would never get that answer unless I did it, right? So this is me doing it.
Yeah. So what were your biggest fears at the time, just making that move? Because I know you're a bold and confident young lady, but did you have some fears and how did you overcome them? Because I think people listening or watching, if you're thinking, I'd love to do something like that, I'd like to be bold enough to make a decision like that. But the fears, fears can be crippling, fears can really hold you back. What fears did you have at the time and how did you overcome them?
Well, the main one was leaving my son, because even though he was 20 at the time, if I just go back a bit, when I came home from the retreat, I said to him, let's move to Bali. And he was down. He said, yes, let's go. So I didn't have any fears at that point. Jeanette, you know what it's like as a mother. If your child is there, you can't fear anything. So at first I had absolutely no fears. I was coming out here with my son and I was going to make sure that everything was okay. He then decided that he wanted to go back to uni and wasn't going to come to Bali with me. And that's when my fears kicked in, because I was like, okay, now I'm doing this alone. I'm leaving my son. And obviously it took a while for me to get everyone's full support. So that was a bit of a fear, that is this going to impact relationships that I have at home? So my son, he was amazing. I said sort of like, I don't want to leave you. How can I be in the country for a year without you? But he said, Mum, you need to live your life and do what you want to do. I'm going to live my life and do what I want to do. And he said, I get that from you. So just do it. He had no problem with it at all. So that put my mind at rest.
Encouraging, yes.
He was super encouraging. And then as well, he wanted to live on campus, but then the decision was made for him to stay with my mum. And so that was a huge weight off my shoulders as well, because I knew that she would take as good care of him as I would if he needed it. So yeah, that fear was alleviated. Going back to the relationships, I was worried that I was going on a journey where I would develop as a person, and I knew that that would come with changes to my personality in some ways, or at least I hoped it would, because there was things that I wanted to work on myself. And I was worried that people who knew me really well would see those changes, maybe feel like I was a different person. I didn't want to come back and maybe look at people and sort of see them in a different way. And so I really had to think about the purpose of me going out to Bali. Like I said, to develop, to become a better person, to focus on my health, to focus on my trading. And if anything, it was to come back as a better person for my friends and for my family. So that fear was alleviated as well. By the time that I left, I didn't have any fears at all. And I just took it day by day.
And let's stop there, because this is the end of part one of this series. Now we understand a little bit about your story leading up to your decision to move from the UK to Bali full time. We understand all the pressures you were under at the time, your thought processes, and your motivations for wanting to lead a different type of life. The loved ones that sort of maybe had you second guessing what you believed you wanted to do, but being bold enough to know that they would be fine and that you would be too, and to make that decision to move to Bali. Thank you, Lauren, so much. And I'll see you for part two. Please do follow me at Do a Podcast to find out more about Lauren's story and life-changing decision to move from the UK to Bali. Part two is out as well, so you can find that on YouTube, on everywhere. So join me then and share with your family and friends. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Diary of a Working Woman. I hope you found this episode as motivating and uplifting as I did. Please follow me at DoWork Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. For now, I'm going to say bye-bye and keep striving to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, wearing all the many hats that working women do. Sending you love.